You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, Young and the Restless fans, we have got the shocking news that Allison Lanier is exiting the role of Summer Newman this week. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt, and we're going to talk about why Allison Lanier is out at Y&R and the impact it's going to have on several major characters. All right, so the shocking news just broke that Summer's time in Genoa City wraps up this week. It's sudden, it's out of the blue, and it coincides with bad news for her business line, Marquetti. If you remember, Allison Lanier took over from former Summer Newman actress Hunter King a few years ago on Young and the Restless, and in fact, Allison debuted in the role of Summer in May of 2022. Based on the timing, it looks like her exit in May of 2025 signals the end of a 3-year contract for Allison Lanier. Judging by the timing, I assume Y&R decided not to renew her contract for storyline reasons. You know, Summer's not getting anywhere with Kyle, and they slid Chance onto the back burner, and there's not a lot of action for her. Hasn't been for a while, and Allison Lanier wrapped her filming a month ago, so her last air date is this Friday, May 2nd, and so far there does not seem to be a recast lined up, and maybe they didn't renew her contract because they needed that money to cover Billy Flynn's salary. You know, soaps run on a very tight budget, and a lot of times if they bring in a big name, sometimes they have to scrimp and save in other areas. So at any rate, Summer is definitely leaving soon by the end of this week. And official Young and the Restless spoilers say she's got a professional crisis coming up that hits her hard on Thursday's episode. Chelsea tells Summer she wants to leave to go work with Adam, and Sally's there for the conversation and remarks that it's on brand for Adam to hire the woman he's dating. But Chelsea's going to play nice and sidestep the snark and say that she was hoping Sally would replace her as lead designer at Marquetti. And just as Summer's processing that professional punch in the gut, Sally admits she is also considering a job offer and was thinking of stepping away from Marquetti and letting Chelsea take over for her at Marquetti Z. So this is not good news for Summer. It's double down bad news from Sally and Chelsea. So we'll know more tomorrow, but I suspect Summer may leave for Italy for business reasons, you know, go take Marquetti back to its roots. And just as Allison Lanier's exit stunned fans, you know, Summer's exit is going to affect several people all over the Y&R canvas, and there could be some shockwaves. And of course, this is fabulous news for Claire because Summer can't stand her, and Claire knows it. She can feel the tension every time Summer is around, and Claire also suspects that Summer wants Kyle back, and she's right. Plus, Claire and Kyle are moving in together, and Claire was dreading Summer's reaction to the news. So this would be a nice little break for Kyle and Claire, you know, without Summer being around trying to break them up and rain on their parade. Of course, they're still going to have Victor trying to split them up, and it doesn't look like he's going to stop anytime soon, you know. Plus, there's a chance he may try and blame Summer leaving town on Kyle for not reuniting with her, stuff like that. You know, in addition to Kyle, Victor may also try and blame Billy because he hired Sally away from Marquetti. That caused a work crisis that pushed Summer out of town. Of course, Victor wouldn't blame Adam for doing the same thing with Chelsea, hiring her away from Marquetti, because that's different. However, at least Claire and Kyle are getting a break from Summer and her snarky attitude, and of course, it will affect Kyle and Summer's son Harrison, unless she tries to take him with her. I don't see Kyle allowing it. He just wouldn't go for it. And so in that way, Summer's exit also opens it up for Claire to step in as Harrison's new mommy figure, you know, the latest woman to replace Tara Locke in her son's life. And then, of course, there's Summer's brother Daniel. And of course, his sister Summer leaving would hit Daniel hard because he's still grappling with grief over Heather. And of course, Summer going would affect her niece, Daniel's daughter, Lucy Romolotti, but we haven't seen her in a hot minute, so that's not as big a deal. Hopefully, Daniel won't be so upset that it derails his healing process that he's engaged in. And as far as Chance goes, they've already wrapped that up, and he and Summer got their closure, and Chance is barely on anyway since they pushed Connor Floyd back to recurring. So obviously, Summer's dad, Nick, is going to be bummed. He will not want to see Supergirl leave town, but the biggest fallout, I think, would be Phyllis. She's already teetering on a ledge and falling apart at the seams since she and Sharon were abducted. Phyllis is suffering from, trauma, PTSD, and she was hanging on to Daniel and the job at Abbott for dear life. And with Billy firing Phyllis, she feels like she's got nothing and no purpose. So losing Summer will obviously salt those open wounds. Of course, Phyllis still has Daniel and he's worried about her and trying to help, but he's got his own issues. He's trying to heal and move forward. So Summer leaving isn't going to help Daniel, but I think it will absolutely destroy Phyllis long term. And just one quick note on all this. I do not expect to see these reactions right away. We will know more about the terms of Summer's exit by the end of this week, but unless Y&R is driving her off a cliff with Phyllis in a Thelma and Louise moment, it's going to be a low-key exit, I think, rather than big drama. I don't see them out of the blue shooting her, putting her in a coma, stuff like that. I do suspect Summer may head to Italy for work so she can, there's so many other designers there that she knows, and she can kind of regroup after losing Chelsea and also probably Sally. And Summer might even say that it's only short term until she gets things sorted out at Marquetti, but then she just never returns because Allison Lanier is gone. And by the way, it wasn't Y&R that let us know. It was the actors, because CBS generally just slides people around. They do it on Bold, they do it on YR, and they kind of don't acknowledge exits. A lot of times you do find it out from the actors. So I think Summer is probably going to get the same kind of exit that they've done before, where they just slid somebody out and just don't really talk about it. Kind of like how Allie and Noah went on vacation and never came back. Remember that? So I do think we will get these reactions from people close to her, but slowly and over time. The fallout isn't going to blow up instantly, but I think it will unfold gradually once it becomes clear that Summer's not returning. Now, some of the reaction, like Victor trying to blame Kyle, for the whole incident with Summer having to go, I think that could happen instantly because Victor's looking for any excuse to demonize Kyle. But the other reactions, I think, might be more slow to unfold. Unless, of course, we do get that May Sweeps Thelma and Louise moment, and I can't say that I would hate it, but don't repeat that.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.